Socrates, born around 470 BCE in Athens, emerged from humble beginnings to become one of history's most influential philosophers. He did not write down his teachings. Instead, he engaged in dialogues with Athenians, questioning their beliefs and encouraging critical thinking. This method, known as the Socratic method, involved asking probing questions to stimulate thought and illuminate ideas. Socrates believed that virtue is the highest good and that knowledge is essential for virtue. He famously stated, "The unexamined life is not worth living," emphasizing the importance of self-reflection and ethical living. He claimed to know nothing except his ignorance, highlighting the need to recognize one's limitations and constantly seek knowledge. Socrates was tried and executed for allegedly corrupting the youth of Athens and impiety. His trial and death were immortalized by his student Plato. Socrates' focus on ethics and the Socratic method remains foundational in Western philosophy, encouraging a tradition of critical inquiry and ethical reflection. Plato, born around 427 BCE into an aristocratic Athenian family, became a devoted student of Socrates. Profoundly influenced by his mentor, Plato dedicated his life to philosophy after Socrates' death and founded the Academy in Athens, one of the earliest institutions of higher learning in the Western world. Plato proposed the theory of forms, suggesting that the material world is a shadow of a higher, unchanging reality called the world of forms. True knowledge, according to Plato, is knowledge of these forms, particularly the form of the good. He believed that knowledge is recollection of the forms, which the soul knows from a prior existence. In his seminal work, The Republic, Plato outlines his vision of an ideal society governed by philosopher kings. He discusses justice, the role of individuals in society, and the nature of reality and knowledge. Plato's dialogues, featuring Socrates as the main speaker, explore various topics, from ethics and politics to metaphysics and epistemology. His ideas about reality, knowledge, and governance have profoundly impacted Western thought. Aristotle, born in 384 BCE in Stagira, northern Greece, studied at Plato's academy for 20 years before becoming a tutor to Alexander the Great. He later founded the Lyceum in Athens, where he conducted research and taught for many years. Unlike Plato, Aristotle believed that knowledge comes from sensory experience and empirical observation. He emphasized systematic observation and classification, laying the groundwork for the scientific method. Aristotle rejected Plato's theory of forms, proposing instead that forms are intrinsic to objects. He introduced the concept of substance and essence, exploring the nature of being and existence through detailed analysis. In Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle argues that the highest human good is eudaimonia, often translated as happiness or flourishing, achieved through virtuous living and rational activity. He defines virtue as a mean between extremes and links it to practical wisdom and moral character. In politics, Aristotle examines various forms of government and advocates for a constitutional government that blends elements of democracy and oligarchy. His extensive writings cover a wide range of subjects, influencing the development of scientific and philosophical methods for centuries. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle each had distinct teaching methods. Socrates engaged in oral dialogues focusing on questioning and critical thinking. Plato wrote dialogues, combining Socratic questioning with his own philosophical ideas. Aristotle wrote systematic treatises, emphasizing empirical observation and logical analysis. Their views on knowledge also differed. Socrates believed in acknowledging ignorance and pursuing knowledge through dialogue and critical inquiry. Plato proposed that knowledge is recollection of the eternal forms, which exist beyond the physical world. Aristotle emphasized empirical observation and sensory experience as the foundation of knowledge. In terms of ethical theories, Socrates focused on virtue as the highest good and believed that knowledge leads to virtuous behavior. Plato linked virtue to knowledge of the forms, particularly the form of the good. Aristotle defined virtue as a mean between extremes and linked it to rational activity and the pursuit of eudaimonia. Their political philosophies also varied. Socrates engaged in discussions about justice and the ideal state, influencing his students' political thought. Plato advocated for a society ruled by philosopher kings and outlined his vision in The Republic. Aristotle analyzed various forms of government and advocated for a constitutional government that balances different elements of governance. Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, the three towering figures of ancient Greek philosophy, each made unique contributions that have shaped Western thought. Their legacies are not just historical artifacts, but living traditions that inform contemporary debates in ethics, politics, and science. By understanding the similarities and differences in their philosophies, we gain a deeper appreciation for the rich intellectual heritage they have bequeathed to us.